Candid camera.
Cool. All right. So, well, first, have you thought about narrative at all, or are you just like totally not thinking about that at all right now?
Totally not thinking that. One thing Tom and I were talking about is that we both really like is the idea of trying to make the game like very fun before trying to add like a lot of fluff or flavor or any like narrative. And I definitely understand the concept of like having the narrative inform the game mechanics.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would like respect that, but I also think there is something to be said for having the narrative mask poor game mechanics.
Yeah.
So I do
So I
want we're
think,
trying to like kind of purify the game mechanics before the narrative, and then of course like with the willingness of like if there's a really good narrative thing that would like make sense to implement a certain game mechanic to support like doing that later.
okay. So I'm gonna kind of a little counter to that talk in terms of narrative slightly,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that does kind of help with gameplay and like also with like UI decisions a lot.
Okay.
So feel free to like separate them out and you know, kind of do with what you will
Yeah.
with
No.
that.
No problem.
But like pretty immediately I could see some things like questions come to mind that like will involve that. Like for example, like okay, you are this character like doing these things, but like visually you don't have like yourself represented right now, and like what does that mean? Does that mean that this whole game is super abstract? Does that mean like yada yada yada?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I was thinking of is in terms of like power ups and stuff. Because you were saying you want it to be all level based, which I think is great. I think that fits really well narratively. If it's something like instead of doing something called power ups, you're actually like say for example, like you're this like god or something, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
like the god of war, for
Okay.
example.
Mm-hmm.
And your power ups are actually like you get to decide the type of like warriors that are going to go on to battle to like face all these like different enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I have like like an inventory pulled up over here where you can see like uh farmer like basically a farmer human, like he's really
Mm-hmm.
shitty at like war, and that's like the first one that I can like bring up, and like they're just like villagers with pitchforks or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this is the narrative I want, like of like farmers and stuff. I'm just saying like say that it is a creature that's really shitty.
Mm-hmm.
And then you like scroll down and like at the very bottom or something, there's like demonic, like super or like angelic sort of like demigods or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like the only one that I have unlocked right now is a bunch of farmers. So like, I click farmers is the first wave, and like a bunch of farmers kind of go up like one over here, one over here, one over here, one over here. Um, so they're fighting them, and
Mm-hmm.
like what I'm doing here is like instead of like actually attacking these guys, what I'm doing is like focusing on like the humans and like giving them like powers or whatever. So like I'm giving that human like firepower or whatever. And like they're just like in the midst of battle as I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of like helps me kind of understand, okay, like I understand kind of like what I'm doing right now. Like I am this like deity, and I have like a certain amount of resources of these like humans or whatever that are kind of shitty to like basically fight with.
Mm-hmm.
And then like maybe so I like clear this level, and it's not like my health, it's like basically the different like characters' health, you know, um, like I need to kill these guys really quickly before like the health of these guys disappear essentially, and then die off. And then like the lose condition is instead of like my health, it's just that flat out all my characters die.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not even health based, maybe it's time based. Maybe it's all just like cooldown bars, but essentially like I put my first wave out, it's like 1 minute or something, like not fixed or anything like that, but like, it like the bar goes down as they're fighting, and I have to like quickly get them before like the whole wave dies out. And then like once they die out, then I can like send out my next wave, and like more enemies appear and my next wave comes out, and it's like, time based thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. Um.
This is just like high level idea stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit different than what you have on here, but it's just like, something
Yeah,
just
I mean,
brainstorming.
mostly that just does sound like a skin. Um,
It's a kind of a skin, but also it's trying to make sense of like power ups and like what are you trying to do here? You know what I mean? And who are you a little bit, but it's like mostly like how do power ups really fit in here?
I When you
And
say
I'm not.
power ups, you don't mean the things like at the bottom that are like fire, or water, right?
No, it's the power ups that you're talking about. You were saying like we want to incorporate power ups and we want to have them like um per level, you know, and so that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Like that from as a gamer, like that sort of narrative really appeals to me. But from a perspective of trying to make the game as accessible to as many people as possible, I'd really like to actually stay away from like an attacking narrative. Um, I think that like really limits your audience, and I would like this to be a game that like people who may like would download, Candy Crush or like Threes or Triple Trouble Town or something would like give it a shot,
Yeah, I
instead of
think
like the kind of people who would download like Clash of Clans or
yeah.
Clash Royale.
Yeah, I think
Um,
this could work totally with that. Cause like if you think about like Triple Town, you know, you have like these bears and like humans in it, and they're super cute, you know, and like you're essentially trapping the bears or like something, you know, but like it's fine, you know.
well, you're trying to build up towns and
Yeah,
stop the bears from stopping you from building towns. So like
right.
mainly it's a construction game. I think that like having a game where like when someone goes to like the screenshots and what they see is like a bunch of pictures of like soldiers and like spells and fire and stuff, like a huge section of people on the mobile market is just immediately not going to download that game.
Okay, let me try to be clear because I think maybe you're misinterpreting, but what I'm trying to say is like my narrative is an example. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It's like not something that I'm pushing for at all. I'm not saying you should be a god. I'm not saying you should have like soldiers or farmers or anything like that. I'm
Hmm.
saying like I'm using these as like just mechanic ideas so that it's just easy to talk about. So like let's strip that completely. Like let's replace farmers with like I don't know, like
Let's just say it's like abstract gems or something,
well
just
that's what I'm
as an
trying
easy
to
way to get
say.
the narrative away from it, and so I can understand maybe what you're saying better with mechanics.
Okay, sure. Like there are gems next to your, I don't know, your enemies. Because you have enemies, right?
That's the thing
These are
is I
enemies.
think no, like I prefer not to have them be enemies. Like I prefer
Well,
to
you're calling
completely
them
move.
enemies.
Um,
I'm trying
Not
to like
explicitly anywhere.
well you I thought when you were explaining to me.
Yeah, just because I was trying to use the sort of language that I remember AOE game was using, but I would like to move away from that. I was sort of
No,
trying to
yeah,
explain with
so
the
I
familiar
get that.
concepts.
And that's what I'm trying to do. So maybe that helps you understand a little bit more.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm confused about. What mechanics this idea is introducing, other than like an attacking narrative. So, like, maybe let's talk about it like they're gems, and you're trying to like harvest them, and then maybe you could explain to me like how the mechanics you're because I'm not sure I understand the differentiation that you're trying to make between the
Okay,
mechanics and the
sure. I mean, I
narrative.
could just put another narrative on the same exact game mechanics if that helps you. Is that what
Yeah,
you're trying to
I
say?
think it would. Yeah.
All right, so like say these are not enemies, they're gems and you're trying to like excavate them from a rock.
Sure. Yeah.
And you are like a nameless player, like God essentially, who's like basically like there are all these like miners, like
Okay.
dwarf miners or like whatever, like people miners, like maybe they're bears, doesn't matter. Sure,
Okay.
let's call them animals.
They're
They're
trying to
animals
like
that
mine the
want
rocks.
gems.
Okay.
So there's a bear here, there's a bear here, there's a bear here, there's a bear here.
Okay.
And you are the bear or person that gives them like say like different abilities,
Okay.
you know, that
Mhm.
like help them do that. So they're like constantly trying to do this. They have like a tired meter or something like that. So you're giving, say you're just giving them energy. You're like,
Okay.
okay, like these two need more energy because they're gonna like pass out soon.
Okay.
I don't need this one. And then, you know, submit my turn. And like those, suddenly those bears are like, yeah, we have more energy. And so these start like getting excavated a little bit quicker. While these two are like kind of the same.
Okay.
Um, and like as I move forward, like that's the first wave, you know? And
Mhm.
as I move forward, and continue to go. Like say like because see in my next turn, like I focus on these guys again. Yeah, close enough. And then say like on this turn, like awesome, like they actually finished way before these guys. Um,
Does
so
finished mean that they like the equivalent of you got their health to 0?
mhm,
Okay.
like they gotten the gems.
Okay.
So those bears leave with their gems, and then uh, like I can either help or I can like help these guys, um, or I can like bring out more bears, or I can like bring out the I don't know like it's another narrative like a bird, it's like a woodpecker that's like super good at like woodpecking around the it's like a level up almost like character that's like the power ups that you're talking about, and these bird like woodpeckers are now assigned to over these guys, and
Okay.
you're continuing. So I don't know. Like that's sorry, I'm like struggling to just like make up a whole new narrative because like, it's just like easier to talk about like one narrative and not apply them exactly, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, if I can understand a little better then now, like maybe I think I understand the mechanic you're trying to introduce with these two narratives, is that you're selecting the things that are on the field instead of them being pre-made, which is the way they are now.
Um
Like you're saying, like I want to place you know, a gem cutter or whatever at each of these 4 locations of each of these types. Is that what you're saying? Because you sounded like you were saying you can like send out another bear or send out another bird.
yeah, like I'm saying like so there's always going to be these gems uh equal to your like which you're talking like I don't know, your enemies slash gems always here, right?
Yeah.
And you like I'm talking about another element which you bring on, which like go next to the gems that always just appear like maybe you don't like assign them into here, like maybe they're just like forever gonna be like waves, like as soon as like these two gems like get excavated and like get taken away by the two bears, like maybe like there's like another two gems that are revealed behind them, and like two bears come along and like immediately start like going at it again, but like this time from like the gems are at health at like 100%, and like maybe the power ups are like change these bears into like birds or something or whatever,
I'm having like a little hard of a time sort of understanding what that like adds to the game.
So I'm trying to help you with like the power ups thing, because right now it doesn't sound like you really have like a plan for power ups, but you want them in there and you want them to be level based.
No, I have I
And
have
I'm
ideas for power ups. Um,
Oh, okay, because you didn't say anything about them.
yeah, like
You're
well,
like
I gave you
mentioning.
one example of a power up would be like, for instance, all of your like areas cards are like doubled. Or like maybe your fire card does twice as much damage, or like the more enemies that are on the board, the more damage all of your spells do. So you have a incentive to kill them all at the same time instead of slowly, or maybe like the enemies attack slower. Like I was thinking the power ups are like sort of global modulations on the way the gameplay works, and then based on each level layout, sort of one of the interesting decisions that would add some depth to the game is like selecting the right combinations of power ups to help like synergize with beating the level the best.
So I think that's a really cool idea.
Hmm.
However, I feel like if you're trying to get more casual gamers into playing these games, like I think instead of like doubling effects and stuff like that, things that feel like more natural to the game might be a little bit like easier to understand. So like for example, like you've heard of like flowers versus zombies or zombies versus
Plants
flowers,
versus
like whatever it's
zombies.
called. Plants, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
plants versus zombies. So like there's like for example there like different types of plants and they all do different things, right?
Hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm talking about here is like adding instead of like adding like make this be like 3 times damage, it's like instead like add your plant that like does AoE effects or I don't know, something like that, you know what I mean? And like you can like um, keep them alive or like whatever, you know?
That's the hard part. I'm having a difficult time understanding. Like, can you give me like a concrete example of what that means? Like, so let's say like you selected a power up that's like one of the people who's coming to like mine your node. Or, I mean, we can go back to your other analogy if you're having a hard time with this, and I'll just try to like disassociate it with fighting in my mind.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
these are like enemies on the board, and your power ups are selecting what your units are going to attack the enemies.
Hmm.
Um, and then you're casting spells to like augment your units, right?
Yeah.
So in this way, what I'm confused about is how that three-way interaction works. So let's like take the existing game mechanic as it is, right? So the enemies on the board right now have like some vulnerabilities, right? That your spells are hurting. So you're thinking strip the vulnerabilities from the enemies entirely and add them to, instead of it being an enemy card interaction, it's a your power up card interaction.
Yeah, I think it would be like, let's stop using the word power up, you know,
Okay.
and start thinking about like character types or like hero types is a better phrase. So it's basically instead of using power ups, which I think can be a little too like hardcore gamey or like
Yeah.
mid-core gamey, like adding character type or heroes, I think make it like easier for people to understand, if that makes sense.
It's I can
Like more
understand that
immediate.
goal, but what I'm very confused about is how like that doesn't like radically shift the point of the game in a way that makes it confusing for me, because right now to me there's like a very clear like spells are effective against enemies, and when its spells are helpful for the power up people you select, I'm very confused now because I don't understand how that propagates in when you come into this level. The decision you're trying to make is how am I going to maximally affect uh, the enemies on the board in the existing level with the spells, right? To optimize. But when if you're choosing your like heroes yourself as power ups and your spells affect your heroes, it seems to me like it really muddles that otherwise very clear user decision, because now it's instead of like how instead the powers become or the heroes almost become too important. Instead of like how am I going to maximally hurt these enemies that are pre-existing by using my spells cleverly, it's how do I pick the right power-ups to match the deck that I already know I'm getting. So instead of like a sort of an interesting like okay, I've got this fixed deck and I've got these fixed enemy types, how do I optimize that? It's I'm going to pick my heroes to match the deck, but I don't know anything about the deck yet because you can't see the whole deck, so it kind of feels like you're making your player make a blind choice and shifting the player's optimization strategy into one that's like more muddled and darker and less clean, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Does
I
that make
guess you'd have
sense?
to probably make it so that there aren't these like enemy types, you know? Because like so like right now, yeah, like the vulnerabilities. So like okay, let me just say I like this game. I think
Mm-hmm.
this game is cool. I think this game is a little bit more like a mid-core experience than a uh like casual one.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, like having like you attack something and them having vulnerabilities, you know, I think is just like not casual.
Okay.
And um I'm not talking about narrative at all. I'm just talking about like that idea.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying,
Okay. So
but
I'm talking about then like if you simplified it, you know, like I think like simplifying it in a way where it's like these none of these have vulnerabilities, really. Like they're all like each enemy is the exact same thing. You can get rid of like essentially if you wanted to like all this information. Like this is a lot of information to have to like
mm-hmm.
like basically think about. Like this is like chess almost, you know. It's like so many decisions to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm saying like let's brainstorm like how can I simplify these things?
Mm-hmm.
And then instead what you're doing is like say um like uh you just always have bears trying to get honey or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, you know? all the time, and you're just focusing on the bears and then just like making them so that they don't go to sleep, you know?
Mhm.
And that's all it is. And you're just trying to like make that happen as long as possible until like the game ends,
Mhm.
you know, or like you get enough points or like whatever. You know, there's no health really. There's like, you know, these things aren't attacking you, they're not attacking the bears. They're just like basically you're trying to get them and like resource management almost.
Okay.
And the only decisions you're really making are like, okay, do I want to like, you know, like as you're progressing, like, you know, you start with bears and then maybe you start with, or you get to like birds and then you get to like whatever other animals like better, you know?
Mhm.
And you're not making the choice each beginning of each level of like, okay, do I want bear? Do I want bear? Do I want this? You know, like it's just automatically already happening for you.
Okay.
And then, if you wanted to, you're able to like change that, you know? And then what you're trying to do is just say like, okay, these bears need like, I don't know, Red Bull or whatever to keep them awake, you know, and then like submitting your turn or whatever. And it's like, okay, they're doing really good and they're actually like finishing sooner or whatever and just continuing. Cause like, I just feel like like, there's a lot of info. There's like health for this guy, health for this guy, health for this guy, damage for this guy, damage for this guy, turn still attack,
Mhm.
um, vulnerabilities. Like there's just like a lot there, you know? And it's like cool and I would totally play that game, but it's just that that's not like a phone game, you know?
Yeah. So I definitely like I can understand that feedback that it's too complicated. Um.
Yeah, so that's all I'm trying to say is that like it's a little complicated and also like this idea of like matching or like having vulnerabilities and strengths just feels a little like hard. And how can you simplify all those things if
Well,
that's what your goal is?
yeah. Well, I think so. Like again, so I appreciate that design goal, and like I think accessibility is something that is important to me. Um. But I feel like the what worries me about that the sort of pitch, if I understand it correctly, of either like selecting the heroes who are coming in, or not. Either one is like let's start with the first one because that's sort of I'm not quite sure I understand when you would do one and when not the other. So based on your what you described. So if you're like selecting like the things that come on, like whether they're birds or bears or whatever, um, then you have to either reveal the user the entire deck of cards beforehand, so they can make a meaningful decision, or you're asking them to select something blindly.
No,
Um,
I'm not ever saying that like in the beginning of your match you have to decide everything that's going to happen for the rest of the match, you know?
so you're saying each round you select to change up all the enemies on the board.
Like each time there's like okay, so so maybe this is a good example. So like say these are all honey, right?
Okay.
This is the first level ever.
Okay.
Everything is honey.
Okay. There's four honeys in
Bears,
the
yeah,
turn.
bear eats honey
Okay.
and they want the honey. So
Okay.
like so say the narrative is like you are the forest, I don't know, like you're Mother Nature basically.
Mhm.
And you want to make sure that like all your animal friends are like well fed.
Mhm.
So like bears like honey. So it's like cool, like this is bear round. Like you can choose bear. I choose bear for all these honeys, you know.
Mhm.
And then I'm gonna keep these bears like, you know, alive so they can get home. So like I'm guessing restart doesn't work.
No.
Okay. I'm gonna keep these bears alive so that they can like finish the day of like, their round of like getting these honeys to their family, right?
Okay. So bears and honey were both pre-selected for you.
Yeah, it's number one. Like that's the first round ever.
Okay.
Like I have no other
First
decisions to make.
level or first
First
round
level,
or both?
first level,
First both.
first whole level, whatever.
Okay. First level.
So I finished that, and I'm like, yay, okay, cool. So then I get the next level, and the next level is honeys again, honey, 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 and then
Can you
bears, and
back
then
up? I'm like confused about the first. Let me just make sure I understand the whole
yeah,
flow of the first level.
no
So
problem.
there was just four spots of honey, and four bears are like automatically picked,
Yep,
and you
they're
have.
just like they basically like say they like round one starts. You see
Mhm.
bears just like appear, one,
Mhm.
two, three,
And
four, and they start.
you have like your cards or your spells or whatever you want to call them,
Mhm.
and they're all just honey.
No, they are things like I said, like Red Bull or like whatever that makes bears like I don't know, maybe they're magic energies or like things to help them with their stamina.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm like, give you stamina.
So, well, yeah, before you progress, because I'm still confused, are some cards going to be better against, or they're just equal, they're all equal to the same? Like, you have a hand of 3 Red Bulls or stamina or whatever, and they're all going to do the exact same thing to all the bears?
Um, I'm not sure. Like they could be a little bit better, a little bit worse. Maybe they're like I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4 or something, and 4 is always like the best, you know?
Yeah.
But like you have to pair that with like the instinct shape, you know? So like I can get more with this one, but it's like, a 1,
hmm So
or
it's
like it's
just
just a
shapes and,
higher level endurance or like smaller level endurance giving.
just
Putting.
shapes and like numbers on the cards.
I don't know if it's numbers, but it's like something to like,
Intensity.
yeah,
Shape and intensity. Okay,
I
so
guess.
you have a board of a bunch of things. Um, then you have just shapes and intensity, and just matching the best shape intensity combination, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
all of the bears have like little stamina bars,
Okay.
essentially, or like they have something that lets you know that they're like draining their stamina level. So you're gonna like prioritize certain bears over others, you know?
Okay.
So, um, does that make all sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I get to the end of the level and I win because I made sure that all the bears continually had enough stamina to like collect all the honey that's in that round.
Okay.
So I win.
Okay.
I go to the next level and say they're all honey again, and then there's a bunch of bears next to them, and they're all like trying to get the honey.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like trying to do the same thing, trying to do the same thing, and I like focused a lot on this one, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and this one gets the honey and leaves, and then all of a sudden, instead of it being honey now, it turns into I don't know, like let's say it's another good animal thing, bird seed.
Okay.
It turns into bird seed, and it's like a bird feeder or something.
Okay.
And I see that I can like I don't know, maybe I don't even choose. Like maybe then like there's bird seed and then a bird just like shows up, I guess. Maybe that's a thing.
Okay.
Um and I don't know, like obviously this is like half baked, so I'm kind of talking through some of it myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like bird seed is here and then a bird comes up and it has a different thing of stamina. Like maybe birds just like have way less stamina than bears or something, right?
Okay.
So maybe I have to just like focus on that thing more, but like I don't know, maybe balancing wise, like bird seed, I don't know what would work better, like if they like get excavated faster or slower or something. I'm not really sure
Mm-hmm.
what would be more fun, but like, that's just like a different thing now, right?
Okay.
But like these things don't change, like I'm using the same stamina, 1, 2, 3, 4. Um, but it's like now like the character has changed. But like these things kind of I don't know. I don't know. I've been thinking like maybe the birdseed still stays the same. I'm not really sure. Just to simplify,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe it's the same rate as these guys, and it's really just the bird stamina that's changed now.
Okay.
Um, but you see what I mean now,
Yeah,
like
I
that thing.
do. Well, so I think I see what you mean, and I think so. First of all, I actually really think that the like tending to nature and being Mother Nature narrative sounds really appealing and really awesome, and I like the idea of exploring that. Um, but I still, what you've just described to me just sounds like exactly the same game, but level design where all of your cards are like fire. Let's say, obviously, I don't want to use fire. But these are just like
Mhm.
template things, and all of the enemies on the board are grass.
Mhm.
So what I love about this game design, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about making it, is I feel like it unfolds really well. So this level is like featuring kind of like a lot of the mechanics, but I feel like you can have this exact same game design without changing it, um, and do exactly the mechanics you just described by just limiting the spell types and the like enemy types in the earlier levels. And what I think the strength of this mechanic is that that can start very easy for casual players, and you can very slowly introduce, and this is like going to require some user testing, the additional mechanics to a state where people get comfortable. And I think just like a game like Candy Crush, where it starts off like all you're doing is match 3 and that's it. But after you play 200 levels, you have all these like, chocolate candies and spreading candies and ticking time bomb candies and dripping candies, and like you add all of these mechanics that would be like intensely overwhelming for a player in the beginning, who especially a casual player. But because you've played 200 levels, they've rolled out in a nice way, and that's the right way I think to do this game and this mechanic. Is I don't think you should ever start a user with this many shapes and this many enemies and this many information. I agree very much with you. The pacing needs to be a lot slower. Like, I feel like what would be very appropriate is basically you take all the turns to attack, you make sure the first like 100 levels they all attack on the same exact rate, and you just make it one counter in the top right. You take the damage, you know what I mean? You just make all the enemies have the same damage, you make it one counter in the top right. And all it
So,
is just exactly what you described, just like hitting health.
so like, let
With
me ask you a question
it,
then.
yeah.
What is the point of having power-ups?
So the power-ups are just one additional layer to like, I think like to have a game like that has the success of Candy Crush. Part of that success, I believe, is due to the fact that there are like hundreds and hundreds of levels, and that you never stop adding new mechanics. Like, it's kind of the same thing as like, that slots thing where it's like you got to make a new slot machine every week, but I think it's like less punishing and more fun for the user. Um, because they pile on each other instead of being discrete things. So I think the point of power-ups is like the user doesn't start with power-ups or a lot of variety or a lot of selection, a lot of enemy types, a lot of spells, whatever. But over time, you can very slowly roll these things out. So after a user's been playing your game for, months, and they are very comfortable with all the spell types and the area types and the enemy types, then they, maybe they get their very first power-up, you know? That's the point of power-ups. I think it's to add like layers of complexity and depth as you progress through a lot of levels.
Okay, cool. I think that all sounds way better than I think what you presented to me.
Okay.
Because I mean, I agree. That's why I was trying to like simplify everything. Because you were sounding like I really want to have power-ups, and I'm like, well, this game just sounds really complicated. And like, if you want to have some like additional thing, like I would say, like let's like turn these guys into being something way more simple, and then like introduce power-ups as a like more integral part of a game, and have them be like heroes instead that you're like maintaining. That you still have like the ability to do some choosing, but like, you know,
Yeah.
just try and figure out like what that element is if it's like a major part of the game. But it doesn't sound like it's a major part of the game at all. It sounds like it's just like an add-on thing later. So
Yeah, exactly. It
seems like
is.
let's not talk about it at all.
This is sort of the core game, you know what I mean? And then you were asking me. I wasn't even going to talk about power-ups, but you were asking me like what other metagame features are there, you know? So I was trying to go into like some of the deeper later things, but I don't think power-ups should be introduced for a while. And I even think like, so in this I happen to be representing turns to attack on every enemy and damage on every enemy. Even those I think should not be variable for a long time. Like, I agree with you. I think that in the beginning it should be very, very simple, where it's like potentially just like you said, like one enemy type, one spell type, all the enemies do the same amount of damage and attack on the same frequency, and that's just like one UI element somewhere, you know?
Okay, cool. Well, I think that sounds way better. All right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so never
I
mind
just
about my idea right now.
Yeah, I'm just putting all this in this level so that I can program them, you know? Like,
Yeah,
I haven't
makes
designed
sense.
100 levels yet, so.
Yeah, no, I get it
Yeah.
now.
Okay. But I do love the narrative of Mother Nature taking care of animals. Because I had thought I was trying to think of alternative narratives to like a military and fighting, because I think that's really just going to be a turnoff for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that like one of them I was thinking was like, you're a farmer taking care of farm animals, but I like Mother Nature taking care of animals like a lot more, because
Well,
you get
one
to have
thing,
much more interesting animals, and I hate
yeah.
farming.
Well, one thing I can do to help you out with, which I've done a lot with large animal, is just like brainstorm narratives and do a bunch of drawings and like show you guys like a bunch of different options,
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because I mean that's like what I did for this game and already, so I could like maybe dig some stuff up for this one. As well as like just like a bunch of other like like there's like another game that so like an example of one that I tried out, which I really liked, is like you are a boy in a treetop, like in a treehouse,
Okay.
and like you have like this magical or like crayon idea, like and all these like kind of crayon monsters are like coming for you,
Oh, that's cute.
and like you're basically drawing things that will like counter them.
Yeah.
So it's like all like crayony and like cute, and like also like the world is like very like green and lush and everything, but
Hmm.
like it's like all like kind of like him kind of play pretending. So there's like stuff like that you could do. There's just like so many different narratives that you can like explore and not
Yeah.
make this about like killing.
I agree. That's another one of the strengths. The reason I want to make the game so badly is I agree. There's a lot of different narratives, and I agree they can be explored. The only reason even that I'm using like fire, water, earth here is just because the relationships between them are really obvious.
Yeah. And I think like that's fine too. Like if you wanted to keep that, I think that's totally reasonable and actually is like I wouldn't stray too much from stuff that's like people know automatically,
Hmm.
like are familiar with. Like I think that's really powerful and like should definitely be used, you
Yeah,
know.
I don't think that people are that familiar with that though. That's one of the reason I was thinking farm animals and I like Mother Nature even more is because I can see something that like you just said really makes sense where it's like you've got a bunch of animals and your options are like, vegetables, meat, um, water. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And you're just like nourishing them while they
Hmm.
like frolic, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever. So I think, and those relationships would be very simple too. Obviously, like meat's gonna be bad on a bunny, but really good on a bear,
But I would also
kind of thing.
say that like something that I've noticed a lot of is that like a lot of casual game companies like I think overly like are overly cautious about like let's stay away from like all these things that people like casual people are generally not interested in for themes
Hmm.
when that's like I think been proven again and again just like wrong.
Yeah. Well,
No.
another thing, yeah, I'm glad you say that because another thing that Tom and I were talking about is not to like pat ourselves in the back or anything, but I think we're like pretty good engineers. And I mentioned this to you earlier, and I know you're not a big fan or don't believe it's possible, whatever. But I believe we can make a game that's like fairly visually agnostic.
What
Um,
does that mean?
like it's reskinnable, including animations and things, without a lot of effort, with like a minimal amount of effort. Um, like designed very intentionally that way,
Yeah.
so that we could
No,
potentially
yeah.
release like a version that's Mother Nature, and a version that's like Gods of Olympus.
So I
Uh,
think you can totally do that,
yeah, and
but
then
like
just see
I
which one does better.
yeah, again, like I think you totally can do that, but I think it is really helpful to think about the narrative anyway
Hmm.
before like as you're doing it because that will inform things um for the better a
I
lot
agree.
of the times. So like if what I would do there is like prioritize like okay, we want to put more effort into this one and we want to like think about this narrative as we're working on this, but like also every step of the way keep in mind like is this decision going to deter us completely from like reskinning it in this other way
Hmm.
and then like make that decision and then continue forward, like I would prioritize that narrative and make that the best you can and then like the second one being like not on equal terms always like just like thinking of it as like the backup.
I love that idea.
Cool.
And I like so far like both the Mother Nature
Mhm.
and the like Little Boy in a Tree with Crayons is really good. I like them both. I would be like willing to prioritize either of those as our first runner. I also like had brainstormed some myself, and I was thinking like I feel like it would be worth trying like a sort of generic gem thing where it's very abstract,
Yeah.
and you're just like shattering gems or growing gems even, um, and there's just like a color relationship between them.
Well, yeah, I think that's awesome. Like I would recommend before settling on like anything at all
Hmm.
is to just like have a brainstorming session where you like literally and then we've done this a lot in large animal, like literally like write down, like have everybody talk,
Hmm.
you and Tommy, get together and just like write down everything that you would want to try out. And then from there just like give that list to like me, for example,
Yeah.
if I'm helping out with the art
Hmm.
and then basically like say which are the ones that you feel are the most interesting,
Hmm.
and then I could like go back and like think about some of those and then like do some concept work, you know?
Yeah. So, just like to address what you just said about if I'm helping out with the art, to be clear, like Tommy and I are both like willing to and would love to accept your like input and your help in like whatever capacity you're willing to provide it. Like if you want to help out with art, we would love it if you'd help out with the art. Um,
Cool.
the only thing that we're trying to do, the reason that I like you maybe feel the opposite of that is we're also not trying to depend on anyone who's not making this their like full-time job, you know? Because we don't want to be like this person's our dependency and like we're sitting around 40 hours a week trying to work on this but like we don't know what these decisions are because they're not matching our commitment, you know?
Well, the thing is, like, with concept work, like, it doesn't seem like that would hold you guys back at all. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if I.
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, like I would agree, but like to what you're saying, like designing with one narrative in mind, for instance, you know what I mean? Like until that narrative's selective, like we want to keep programming, you know what I mean?
Yeah, do it, you know?
So yeah, so that's why the only thing why we're doing that, and we're saying like, okay, we're just gonna like go and try to make it as agnostic as possible because we don't want to like be dependent on those things. Even
Yeah,
though
I'm
like I
thinking it
definitely
too.
agree with you that
Oh,
like I would love to incorporate them, you know? You okay?
yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I just, like, laid down because my stomach hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you can do that, and I don't think, like, I think you guys are still, like, fairly early into this, you know what I mean? And I feel like, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if there is, like, one thing that we feel like, oh, you know what, like, because of this narratives, like, I feel like this thing would actually be a lot better than the thing we already did. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think it would be, like, I'm not thinking it would be, like, let's you know, do everything over. It's like, do this, like, one part, maybe slightly differently, you
Yeah.
know? So like I don't think it's like a big deal, honestly. Like the game is simple enough that I feel like it's probably fine.
Okay.
Probably fine for you guys to continue to like do engineering work while like if I like do concept stuff. And like I think also like you know like I didn't know like you guys were comfortable with me like helping out in whatever capacity. So like I would totally love to help with the concept art for this, and that would mean like I would treat it professionally and be like, okay, like what is the deadline for it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I would like make sure to get it done by that deadline.
Well, we can't pay you, so I understand if you don't prioritize it above your real job, you know?
You can't pay me?
Yeah. So that's why it's like that's why we don't want to like even though we welcome any help and you're welcome to do concepts and whatever and we would love to have it, like we're not like, gonna be like, "Hey, you're responsible for the concept art" because we understand if like your real job's going to take priority, you know?
Well, we talked about this before, and we talked about how like it's like I don't care so much as like of the payment stuff, but we talked about the other thing, right? Which I forgot exactly where we landed, but it sounded like no payment, but like something else that I liked, which yeah, I can't remember the details of at the moment.
I don't remember
Um,
that either, sorry.
but it was like some ownership or like something like that, you know?
Yeah, like some amount of equity
Something like
or
that. I just
something.
don't
I
remember
mean,
what it
you'll
was.
be in the credits. That I can guarantee you
Yeah, like I don't want
that.
to basically have it so that like I help with this, and then it's like, hey, it's me and Tommy's game, when it's like I helped too. You know, like I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
recognition for
Yeah,
like the
I mean,
work
you'll
that I do.
definitely get recognition for your help. Like, I can guarantee that, I would never be like, it was just Tommy and me. I would always be like, and Dehan did the art, or helped with the art, depending on how much of the art you do.
Yeah, yeah,
If you
exactly.
do all
Like
the art, it'll be Dehan did all the art. If you help with the art, it'll be like, Dehan helped with the art. Uh, you know?
or like yeah, like it's uh
If it gets sold, you'll get some equity. Like, is that the other? Like, if it,
yeah, like that.
you know?
So like the idea of like the the game is like ours, like it's like also like a like partly mine in some way or form. Like
Yeah.
it's not like I just I don't know, like
It's not like you're a contractor who's just like getting a paycheck and that's your entire owed.
exactly, because it's
Yeah.
something that I'm like putting time and effort to and not getting paid for it. It's like my blood and
Yes.
sweat as well, that kind
Yes.
of thing.
A hundred
Cool. Yeah,
percent.
so that's
Like,
all that's all I care about, you
okay.
know. And like sure, if the game gets sold or whatever, then hell yeah, like I would love some like uh something with that,
Some money,
like
yeah.
something good out of it.
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic. But yeah, like I'm super excited about this game. I've been wanting to work on it as well for a really long time. Like, I'm super happy.
Well, Tommy gave you access to the repo.
Oh, awesome.
And like again, so you can contribute however much you want to. You could just throw concept art in there, or you could just mail it to me, or look at the repo, or play it as we design levels, or whatever you want. Like, and
Cool. Yeah, like
I would like be happy to have like a formal brainstorming session
awesome. Like
about
I would totally
narratives.
sweet. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's
I
okay.
feel a little crazy right
Yeah,
now.
we
I
can
all
call
of a
it
sudden
soon. I
feel like
think we're in a good place.
well, sure. I almost feel like I like drank like tons of caffeine even though I didn't. So I don't know like what's going on with me. I
Weird.
feel crazy. Yeah. Anyway, so as far as UI UX stuff, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I don't want to hold you more if you're like dying.
No, I mean, I feel bad, but it's not like not talking at the moment is gonna help, I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
I feel like, I tried talking and it's like not bad, so. It's
Okay.
just my stomach fucking hurts, I don't know why.
That's good.
That's good.
I mean, it sounds good that you can keep talking. I said
Yeah,
sounds good, not that's
no, I
good.
know. Alright, so let me start again. I can't escape, can I? Can I get out of here?
No,
Oh,
you
yeah.
got Alt
Oh,
F4.
cool. Alright, so I'm not gonna talk about this at all since this is so like, oh, there's a store. What?
That was just Tommy just like doing UI things just to test out UI things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Alright. Um, so awesome loading, first of all. I imagine that this should be fixed at some point soon. This seems like a bug where this is like completely
Yes.
offline, right?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, a bug. There's
Um,
lots of bugs.
I love how this is like 3D.
Yeah, what we were thinking is that it's way, way easier to design a 3D game and then say, oh, let's just switch to an ortho camera and make it 2D if it fits
Yeah,
better, than the
totally.
other way around. It's very, very hard to design a 2D game and then say, oh, wait, you know what? Actually, it'll look really nice in 3D.
Yeah,
So we
definitely.
just decided to start off in 3D.
Very cool. All right, so let's talk about the next turn first, because that's one of the main things I feel like is in need of help.
Okay.
So at this point, like I feel like, let's see. So were you thinking submit turn is like a button you click after you feel like you're done because of like Hearthstone and like that's the like play
No,
there?
it wasn't because Hearthstone. It was initially I just had when you placed your card, your turn was over. But once I had two interactions, like your
Mhm.
discard plus your card placement, I just couldn't think of another paradigm to allow the user to like do both things and then say I'm done with both things. Because one thing is optional,
Mhm.
and that's the tough part. And I feel like this could be yet another mechanic that can roll out slowly. Like we could start off where like literally it's just place a card, it immediately happens. There's no submit turn, but I think
Yeah.
discarding is an important mechanic to allow the user to have like just a little more choice in their turn. Um, and also I think it might be a really good idea because it's on mobile. And on mobile, it's very easy to accidentally like lift your hand a little to the right
Yeah.
as you release it and crap. People might do the wrong thing, so I was thinking it's nice to have a confirmation. But none of the UI or UX am I married to. It would just have those two design goals, like give the user a chance to confirm thing, and I think there's two choices the user should be able to make per turn, at least in like a little bit later levels, if not the early levels.
Mhm. I would say like uh generally I feel like you're doing the right things. However, I do feel like it's a little much to also click submit turn, like
Mm-hmm.
always in like one single spot.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what I would do is like let them place it and then like discarding like you're not allowed to discard first ever essentially.
You have to
Um
discard after you place your thing.
yeah, so like you place your thing, now you see like the discard come alive
Mm-hmm.
and you have to place it and then I'd say like discarding then it just ends the turn.
Well, I don't think that we should force the user to discard though. That's another tough because
Oh,
that's
I
the,
didn't
that's the, what I
realize.
think is a very interesting mechanical option, which is why the submit turn is
Um,
necessary. Is I think the user should be able to say I like all three of my cards. I'm just going to play one submit turn.
so then I would say maybe there's something up here where you can say submit to, something closer to the discard. Like maybe discards down here, for example. So it's
Near the
either
submit
like
turn.
don't discard or discard. And like discarding will immediately end your turn, Or if you click the, discard, then, or don't discard, then it ends your turn. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't think you should ever be able to discard and then press submit turn. I think you would be able to,
Discarding
like,
immediately ends
discard.
your turn.
Yeah, or maybe, actually, I'm not sure. I think
Yeah.
it needs some testing because that might be a little confusing at first, although maybe people would learn and it's okay, but, like, it's also not super intuitive if you also have to, like, well, maybe it's just wording too, because submit turn or, like, end turn seems a little like that would be confusing if you're discarding and then it immediately ends, but if it's the wording is different and it says don't discard or something like that, then that's fine, you know?
Yeah, that does seem confusing to me. Like you're saying, like there should be one button that serves two purposes. It's both a discard thing you
No.
drag. It's just next. Discard is just next to submit turn.
Yeah. So like discard card is here, and there's also a button that says don't discard. For example, I don't know if the don't discard button is the best right now, but this is the route I'm thinking of is like how do we eliminate clicks?
Hmm.
And that is one example. Because like I think submit turn always seems like always an extra click, whereas I think discard card being the thing that
That ends your turn.
or don't discard turn. Like you have to do one option,
Yeah. So it's
always.
always two clicks. You never have to do three clicks. Is what you're saying.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
like that a goal a lot, eliminating clicks. The one thing I don't like, and maybe you can help think of this, is that it forces you to play then discard. You can't think the other way. Like if you look at your hand, you're like, well, first of all, this card is garbage, and second of all, which of the two left am I gonna play?
Oh,
Uh,
are you saying that you never like you can not go take a turn and then just submit turn?
no. I don't think you should be able to do that. But what I
Oh.
do think is like, so the idea of like letting the users reduce their own possibility space, like kind of to reduce decision fatigue. So like right now you can either like you can play your card like let's play that grass three, and then you're only deciding between discarding two things now, right? So you've like kind of reduced the friction. You don't have to decide between three things which to discard then
Mhm.
which to play, which I think is the way most users will do, right? They're not going to think simultaneously. They're going to think about one and think about the other. So what I like about the three clicks, even though I do want to reduce the clicks, is that you can play your grass three and then you're choosing between discarding two, or you could first choose to discard, say, oh, water three is useless right now. Then you're choosing between playing two. So when there's both a discard and a submit, you get to reduce the amount of decisions you have to make, even though it's more clicks. Because each
Mm.
time you make one decision, you make one less decision. But if your discard just ends your turn, you always have to play your card first. You can't decide, oh, if this card is garbage to discard. Even if you decide it in your head, you have to hold back. If you're like water three's discard, okay, you have to remember that kind of. Then you have to choose between the two you're not going to discard to play. It's like not that bad, and I agree with you. Maybe testing is the right way to do it, but that was what I was going for. Is like
Yeah.
having each successive decision the user makes reduce the decisions they have to think about, so it like makes it a little
Yeah.
more easy.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's just,
Testing, I think, might just be the answer.
I would say also like a lot of this conversation for me for us right
Hmm.
now, for me in terms of like helping you, I think this is probably more you helping me get caught up to speed because a lot of the suggestions I'm saying is very reactionary and you probably, you've been thinking about it a lot longer and like you probably have a lot of reasons as to doing why you're doing what the things are you're doing. So,
Hmm.
this is just like more so I think this conversation is helping me than you.
No problem.
But
I'm
if you're
happy
okay with
to.
that.
I'm totally happy with it. I'm happy to describe why the certain decisions are there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have been thinking about it a lot. Obviously, it's been my
Yeah.
like job for the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah, well, let me keep thinking about the submit turn thing.
okay.
It does feel a little awkward right now, and like how we fix it, I feel like we'll
Hmm.
just like, yeah, be testing different things. So I think the best route there is to like say, brainstorm like what are the two other options we want to try, and then just trying those out later.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
think that sounds great. I'm like totally willing to try the drag to discard, just seeing which one feels better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Drag discard ends turn.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's a little
you
harder
could.
to say if that's gonna like I'm less confident now that that's gonna work if like you don't have to always discard a card. I thought that was like you had to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Okay. Why not?
Um, Because
I
I
think that's
think
like a cool choice.
the option to to discard or not is a very interesting one, especially for later levels. So it's that sort of it's exactly that sort of thing that I think I'm very willing to say in the beginning you can never discard cards, and it's just play one per turn
Gotcha.
for the first 100 turns or something, first
Yeah.
100 rounds. And it's a later mechanic, but I think once you do get a little comfortable and familiar, I think that option to discard or not is like a really interesting one that adds like a ton of depth without like a ton of complexity. Like it's very easy to explain to someone, I think.
Yeah, I would, especially if you're showing this to Mike Stanton and
Hmm.
his wife, um, probably turn off some of the things that you imagine wouldn't be in the first level.
Yeah, well, I think because I'm showing them next week, and I'm already like this is playable, even though it's like obviously got a lot of problems. So I'm
Hmm.
thinking like I'm gonna keep refining some of the problems, make the animations maybe just like read better, like refine hitboxes, maybe even get rid of some of the stuff like right now each enemy has his listed turn to attack and damage. Maybe even put those as their own separate UI. Everyone does this damage, everyone does this turns to attack.
Yeah.
Um, so I was thinking of I might do some of that stuff that's really easy, and then I was thinking of designing like actually like 10 or 15 levels.
Cool.
And actually having like a slight ramp because that's exactly what I want. I think by because I did all this in a week and a half, 2 weeks. So I think in another
Yeah.
week of mostly level design, I should be able to get like just like kind of a rough thing to just put in front of them and not have to explain to them like I am to you. And it's not a problem. Like I'm happy to explain it to you. Like these are all my design decisions, and I'm happy to like have them actually play them and say barring the fact that the UI doesn't read very well, and I'll explain to you what all the UI does, and hopefully it'll be more self-explanatory later. Like play and just like watching them, that kind of
Cool.
thing. That's my goal.
That sounds great. Yeah, I think that'll be really helpful because I think for me, I was a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot here for you because it's like I don't know. I've just been wanting to like involve you because I know you want to be involved and I want you to be involved. And I
Aw.
know it's like not in a great stage to show. Like this is less of a user test for you and more
Yeah,
of a
yeah.
like I'm catching you up is what I was expecting.
Yeah, then that's fine. That's totally fine. I was
And
just, yeah, that's why I was letting you know about Mike Stan, but it sounds like you already have that like completely in your head, so
yeah,
that's
it's
great.
exactly my plan.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So submitting turn, that was the one thing that we talked about.
Yeah, I think so. The big things that I'm not sure if they're doing well. If you want me to just go over them.
Sure.
That I'm like unsure of is I'm unsure of what the best way to display like vulnerability pairings is, and remember that's going to come later. Like in the beginning, it's probably all enemies have the same type and all your spells the same type. But when we get to it, what's the best way to show it? So right now it's on tap on enemy. I'm not sure if that's great. I'm not sure if it should just pop up when you mouse over that enemy with the spell. When you drag the spell over, or if it should maybe it'll be a long press, or maybe a double tap, or maybe it's persistent, but that might be too much
Um,
information.
yeah, I think what you should do is probably scrap it at the moment and instead just match color to color. So like water, or so like for
Oh,
example, there's
blue
like,
damage is blue the
yeah,
best?
yeah, yeah, like just simplify it like that.
Oh, that is a really good idea.
Cool.
I like that idea a lot.
Because I like again like I like the water, fire, and all that stuff, but like I think
Hmm.
until you have like iconography and stuff, it's not going to be as like immediate, and color is super immediate.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really nice. And then I'll just have like I'll look at the color wheel and say opposite color is the weak one.
I no, I would. I'm not sure what you mean actually. What do you
Like
mean?
if blue damages blue better, what
Yeah,
damage is blue less?
blue.
Does that make
Oh, I
sense?
see what you're saying. I see. You know, I think it would just be like all other colors damage it the same.
Equally. And the
Yeah,
text supports that right now. Without any coding, I could write
cool.
that up.
Because
I
I
could
think that would
just
be
with just the
super
data.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice beginning, but I would like to. I think the like the weak and strong is like a nice later thing.
Yeah, I think this particular thing is just for the prototype
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like playtesting. So like I think you can have these kinds of ideas, but like as far as you have it right now, it just seems like color versus matching color
I like
seems really simple and elegant.
color matching for damage effectiveness. I like that idea a lot in
Cool.
early stages. Um,
And then that way too, you can get rid of all this like text everywhere
yeah, yeah,
on
yeah,
top of these
I
things.
agree completely. So much of the
Cool.
text will go away. Basically everything but health. I'll get to
Yeah.
get rid of. And then I'll just like move turns and Alto 1. Turns go to 1. Damage goes to 1. I also think Um, crap, what was I saying? I lost it when I was typing all that stuff up. I like that idea a lot. It's great. Color. Oh, the only thing then is I liked color as an indicator of effectiveness. Do you think I just would have to just don't need that? I think I like, want some indication of like, yeah, because I want
Yeah.
some indication of like this enemy's being
Yeah,
attacked
I would
effectively.
say have that appear on this thing.
How do you mean?
So instead of having it, because you want to make sure that the colors are true. So like if blue is on blue,
Yeah, it's
you want to make
effective.
sure that yeah, this is blue and this is blue still, and not
Hmm.
like all of a sudden this is red and it's not going to work, you know?
Yeah.
So I would have it instead affect something else,
Okay.
like
Well, I got a good idea if you don't mind.
sure, go
As a
ahead.
stopgap, I can just use the same shader tech I'm using on the cards as an outline. So instead of completely changing the color of the sphere will stay blue, but if it's effective, it'll have a red circle around it, just the same way the card. You know when you drag a card to your hand or discard, it
Yeah,
gets an outline? Just
I
for
think
now.
that I think that could work. Or the other thing I was going to suggest is actually affecting the health.
Oh,
So
like
like
moving the health down by the right number. Or like
yeah, and
changing the
like maybe
color or
that
something.
gets red or something,
Okay, I like that.
Cool.
Uh, health visual goes down when
Because that
the
way you can
mouse
like
over.
really clearly, and like even then you can still do your other mechanic where it's like blue goes on top of yellow and like it affects it less because you'll see the health is not going down as much.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. I love all this feedback, and I feel ready to go. Do you feel like you have any other questions? I'm also starving. I want to go eat.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna continue going because
No
like
problem.
that's like two things.
Oh, do you have any? If you have any more quicker ones, I'd love to hear them. But otherwise, I'd really love to get some food.
Are you you're gonna have to cook or did you already cook?
I'm gonna have to prep a little bit. Not
Okay.
like a
Well,
ton
do
of
you want to
cooking.
just continue this later?
Um, sure. I got a couple things. So, you're my priority, of course. I hope you know that. But I was like talking to James about playing games with him like after work. Um, and I can't eat and play games. You know what I mean? Um, so he was asking me like we talked about this yesterday. He was like, "When do you think you finish work?" And I was like, around 6. Um, so I was kind of hoping to be wrapped up around 6.
I gotcha.
Um, so I could go get some food and eat now while we talk, if you want to, and I could run longer if I have to. Like I could tell him that. You know what I mean? I just wasn't expecting to go over this for like a lot of hours because I didn't think there'd be that much to talk about. But I feel like there is a lot, and I'm happy to
Yeah.
talk about it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's all. So that's all where my head's at. That's the only reason I was thinking like, if you have any more feedback, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I was thinking about getting dinner and then calling it a work day.
Yeah, I mean you've been working all day and you should stop at 6. I feel like that's fine.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. What are you guys gonna play?
Uh, there's two things that he wants to play. I'm not sure which one of the two. One is there's a promotion in Heroes of the Storm that I'm actually happy to do this time as opposed to the Overwatch one because it gets you a WoW mount, and that's awesome. And the other thing is he hasn't done his Overwatch seasonals.
Oh yeah, this guy.
What's that?
This
Yeah,
guy.
that guy. So
I
probably
want
we'll
that
just do
one.
one of those two things.
How do you get it?
You have to play 15 Heroes games with a friend.
Aw, man.
I know. I'll do those with you too if you want. I hate having to do 30 Heroes games, but I
Yeah,
would
for
do it because I
real.
love you. I know, it's
Ugh.
not your fault. That's why I'll do this with you. I know it's
Man,
not your
James is
fault.
such a stubborn.
He can be a little stubborn, yeah.
A little.
This is being recorded.
Whatever.
I
I
love
like being
James. I'm
here.
not going to talk bad about him on a recording. Um, I know he
All right.
makes things hard, but,
Anyway. Oh, we don't have to keep talking about it.
yeah.
Um. All right. So, yeah, this is fine. I'll just keep thinking about it a little bit, and I'm gonna try and dig up some of my concept work. I don't know if I have it here though. It's probably at um packed away at the other apartment. So.
Well, did you? So we only talked about two things, and I hate to cut you off because your feedback is super valuable. you know.
Yeah.
So I'd like almost rather like talk to you till 6 and then eat while I play with James. It's gonna be harder than cut you off if you had more to say. Like I want to hear what you have to say. Obviously, I just had felt like kind of we were rounding down, and I was getting hungry, so I
We
didn't
are
mean
we
to
are
like rush it to an end. Um.
we are
So
definitely kind of writing down. Okay, why don't we just talk for a little bit longer and then we
Yeah,
can.
please.
All right. Um. So let's see. Why? Just quick question. Why is deck here?
It's just
What is
no
that?
no good reason at all. Initially, before I had discard or anything else, there was just nothing on the board, and I wanted your cards to come from somewhere, so I was having them come from your deck. It doesn't need to be. They could just materialize in your hand.
I
They could
see.
come from off the stage. They animate from there. It's totally unnecessary. Yeah, you'll see if you hit submit, like a card.
Yeah.
Yeah, they come out from there. Um,
Okay. So I mean, I think in general, there's just like some placement stuff that I would change
okay.
for now for the wireframe and well, this gray box just to help people a little bit.
Mhm.
Like I would probably put this health thing somewhere way more prominent. Like I would just like make like what you imagine like, you know, in every like Facebook game or like mobile game like this top bar
Mhm.
up here and I would have like your pause quit. I would have your player health like really big in the middle here. Um and
Makes sense.
potentially also well and then also in addition to that putting discard next to your submit turn just so that everything is like kind of in the same place, you know?
Mhm.
So you're not kind of just like jumping around everywhere. Does that make sense first?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Another quick question. What is this guy and this guy?
Those are just example things. They literally do nothing. So we have this data format that
Mm,
allows you to define the whole level. Right now, we've already got a point where like the whole level is made with like a level editor.
mm,
That's like custom in Unity. Can I actually share with you real quick?
sure.
My screen instead.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, can we both share? Is that's weird?
I can't see anything yet. Hold on, let me
Do you
check.
see me looking at Unity?
I do.
So we made this like really simple. It's like obviously not like easy to use, but just like level editor. And this is the
Cool.
entire level one, right?
Mm,
So what you can see there's like enemy one. This is what he looks like. You know, this is his health. This is the damage. This is his frequency of attack. These are his vulnerabilities. This is his position, right?
yeah.
Um, so this is the deck. You know, is describe the card, the shape of the card, the class type, the damage. And then there's also where are they? Oh, maybe they're not serialized to here. Showing you this was useless. I guess we don't do this through the editor yet, so it's just in the text. But also, you can place just like random art. You know what I mean?
Cool. I gotcha.
Just so some levels, you know, if there's a grass theme level, but some levels will have like a dying tree, and some levels will have like you know, whatever the artist just has flexibility to kind of place whatever they want in any
Yeah.
particular level
That's great.
for thematics. Yeah. So that's just that's what all of those are. Is they're literally just like, and let's just place two squares to demonstrate that tech to ourselves.
Cool.
So that's it. They're not. They're good. I think I agree with you when I was like, if I'm doing real UX or UI testing with the Stantons, I'm gonna get rid of those squares because they're just confusing for no reason.
Okay.
Visual clutter.
Cool. All right, so just overview really quickly, just so I remember. So you're gonna fix this guy, which will be nice. You're gonna get rid of like these pieces of copy and replace this stuff with just like color coding, as well as like these guys are even
Mm-hmm.
color coded. You're gonna have like an outline as well as the health being affected when you mouse over.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. You're gonna have a big bar at the top that like displays like player health and your pause menu.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have discard next to your submit turn. I'm gonna get rid of this deck.
Yes.
And let's see. And you're gonna also get rid of turns till attack.
So what I'm gonna do is solidify it as one thing in the top bar. Does that make sense? So
Solidify what thing in the
all
top
the
bar?
enemies attack at once
Oh yeah, yeah, that's cool. So
instead of
like
get rid of.
there's player health and then there's like
Turns till enemies
player
attack.
turns. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
exactly.
Great idea.
And then I was thinking potentially as well, and that was always my design
Cool.
intention,
Awesome.
and this is just part of that whole like designing all the mechanics now. So I put it on each enemy because later I want
Yeah.
enemies that are fast and enemies that are slow, and you get more
Yeah.
decisions. But that's like a much later thing.
That's cool.
Um,
That's great.
yeah,
I think that could work later too.
yeah, and then this I was thinking of the same thing with damage maybe, but this is I would love some UI feedback on that. Is in the beginning I think all the enemies should also have the same damage, of course, just to again simplify
Yeah.
the early stages. But how to represent that I was thinking is it could just be something like total damage is going to be at the top bar. So like
Um,
right now, if each damage enemy is going to do 5 damage, your total damage you're going to take is 20. And if you eliminate one enemy, it just goes total damage 15. And then like, so the user just knows sort of maybe you explain to them or they know intuitively like each enemy is just the same, you know. And I'm just
uh,
optimizing area and spell
oh,
damage, you know.
what happened there?
What do you mean?
Your mic went crazy for a second.
Oh, I don't
It's
know.
like you're screaming.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. I don't know what that was. So, okay. I think, don't think about it too much for now for this iteration.
Okay.
I think just put it up at top. Say enemies damage 30 always or something like that, or not even say it. I would just like maybe make it a lot clearer every time you get attacked. How much is like basically have like a negative 30 or something after their turn or something
Yeah,
like that.
makes
You
sense.
know. Um, just for now because I think we'll need to like actually wireframe and design like what that stuff looks like. So it's fine not to go too deep into it at the moment.
I think that sounds great.
Cool. I think for now that's it. I'm gonna keep thinking about things, and I'm actually really excited. I want to like do some work for it.
Okay. I'm
Um,
excited too. It's a pleasure to work with you again.
oh,
I hope you didn't find me overbearing.
no, not at all. I mean, I think this is like really cool. I think when I first started giving feedback about the whole like power-ups thing, like my goal was just like, how do we simplify this game because it seems really complicated right now,
Hmm.
but it sounds like the progression thing sounds really great and that's going to help them dramatically and yeah, if power-ups are not like a huge part of the game, then I feel like it feels really good and cohesive. We
Yeah.
don't have to like add this other stuff that I was saying. So
Yeah, I was definitely thinking the way to introduce power-ups that I love why they would be a rollout later is like that thing where you eventually reach a stage that has a passive power-up, you know? And you
yeah,
beat that stage and then you get that as an option.
that's cool.
You know, then you'd only have the one. It's like, oh, you beat the bigger area stage, oh, you have bigger areas, you know, and then 20 stages later you beat a second stage with a second power-up and it's like, oh, now you get to pick between two. You know, it's like really simple.
And I would make
Um,
it so it's kind of Angry Bird style, I think did it, where it's like before you start the round, you get to pick.
mhm.
Oh, not even like everything, like jetpack, joyride, like pretty much
Yeah, yeah,
everything.
that's exactly
You
the
know?
way I was thinking about it
Ah,
before we start
okay,
the round.
cool, cool.
Again,
That's
it's
great.
like you basically just to pick between the power ups you've already gotten, and then
Hmm.
different ones just like when you get enough that you can't pick them all, different ones just cost different amounts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's all I was thinking. But that's like
And
a later, much later design.
and that sounds great, and I would definitely make it so that like also even though it's later, like you don't have that many power-ups to choose from too. You know, like
Yeah,
really simplify.
I could definitely like get on board with that as something I'd like to test. You know?
Yeah, that's fine. Um, cool. I'm gonna think a little bit about narrative in terms of like how to best match the like counter idea
Okay.
and maybe try and like brainstorm some stuff for myself and then like once you have the brainstorm if we do it all together then I can bring that or like I can just send it to you. Um because I think that's going to be really important, you know.
Okay. You mean like once it becomes not just one color? Like once it's like or do you mean are you talking about the counter as in when you mouse over a spell over an enemy, like how it shows the
No,
effectiveness? What do you mean when you say
just
counter?
I mean like for the real game
Yeah.
like thinking about narratives to help the player understand counter.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because like grass and water and fire and like all that stuff I think is like pretty intuitive,
Hmm.
but like what else is there, you know, as well, just to like brainstorm. I think that's gonna be like focusing on that is gonna be really, really important, you know?
Hmm.
And yeah, sure, like maybe animals and like food or something is like some good ideas, but like what else is there too?
Yeah.
Like maybe it is just like colors, you know, like maybe like, you know, like with you know, red birds always like, you know, are good against each other or like yellow birds or like whatever it is, you
Yeah,
know.
that's what I was thinking. Even though, like, I think gems is like the least interesting narratively, I think in a lot of ways it might read the clearest.
I
Because you
mean,
could basically
maybe.
say, like, okay, there's rubies, and like the ruby spell is the most effective to grow the ruby gem in that spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
but like if
then
you break it
each,
down,
yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was pretty much it. And then it's just like, any other gem is neutral effective against a ruby, and then each gem has like a worse, like
Yeah.
guardians are the worst against rubies.
Yeah, but like when you break it down from there, it's really you're reacting to color because like gems look really similar. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
so if it's like even like, red birds or like red plants or like red I don't know, like chopsticks. Like I'm just looking
Yeah.
around my room now at this point. But like like color is so effective in that way, but also it's really like hard because like at least with UI, you don't want to overdo it with color either, and in game design as well, because
Mhm.
like in game design, like that whole mechanic of like red versus blue is so easy to recognize, and that's like so helpful,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Because it's like one color versus another. Um, but then like once you start like going down the path of like a lot of colors, like colors start to get meaningless because it's not versus anymore. So it's like it's tough. It's like there's like a balance that you need to strike with color. And also there's the idea again of like colorblind people, and you want to definitely keep those people in mind as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So like yeah, so like there's a few things that I feel like we would need to do. Like even if we relied on color, I'm like a little worried that gems aren't enough to help differentiate in some cases.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Candy Crush is really successful, I think, because like there's color, but also the candies there's like super different shaped.
Shapes, yeah.
And like I think rubies and stuff like there's only so many types of gems that you can do that like are so different.
Yeah, and we can't make our spell shaped like a ruby, so
Yeah.
that's a shapes is out. That's a good point. I think that's a really good point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, think about counters and I will too.
Okay,
And
cool.
how to represent them and narratively and visually, and we'll luckily that's not something we have to decide right away, but yeah, like
Yeah.
the sooner the better as always.
And I would also just to like keep your mind open to it, like as a suggestion,
Mhm.
think about stuff you wouldn't normally think would be good for a casual game.
Okay.
Like I think again, like I really do believe that there's this misconception around like, oh well, you're like going for this particular audience and this audience doesn't want to see like space shit or like
Mhm.
sci-fi shit, but like that's so not true. you know like it just really depends on treatment and feel,
Okay.
honestly. You know what I mean? So like I don't know, like maybe like let's stay away from like medieval stuff because like a lot of times that can feel a little bit more like niche,
Mhm.
even though it's opening up right now.
Mhm.
But like let's still, even in that case, like just be open to like brainstorm anything that would immediately like help people recognize like one thing against another thing and just like be open to brainstorming about those things. And like later we can taper off, but like I think it's really worth it to just kind of like keep your mind open to that right now since you're so early in the project.
I agree. Agree completely. I will keep my mind open. I mean, I like
Cool.
want to make a skin of it that's just like casting spells on enemies, like real bad for myself. But
Cool.
so I'm not closed-minded to the idea.
Yeah, yeah. But like again, like I think um oh, well, actually I think another thing to maybe think about is just like the actual age and gender that you want to go for
Yeah,
your
it's
audience.
true. The
Cuz
biggest one.
yeah, but like like
I know. It's good to focus. The more focused, the better.
potentially, because like you can have something like literally that's like I want to go for people who love Pokemon and like actually get more success with that.
Yeah,
Potentially, not saying Pokemon is the best thing
it's
because that's going to be
true.
hard because everyone's focusing on that, but um like it'll also kind of help us with some decision making and like make something feel really appealing to like a particular audience and like also, like we're not like in my opinion this game isn't for moms, or like really old, like it's not for your mom particularly, like potentially like not even Courtney, um like I think like maybe they'd play it and they'd be like this is a good game, but like it's not something that I could see them playing like long term.
Hmm.
Do they even play games, so it's like not really like we're going for
Hmm.
everybody, we're
No,
going
that's true.
for women and men and a certain age audience that just play games on their phone.
Hmm.
So that's a different audience than like everybody,
No, that's true. No, I
Okay,
know. I
anyway,
agree. It's not everybody. I agree.
yeah. So that will help me too, cause and you too, but just in terms of like what's the narrative.
Yeah,
So if you and Tommy want to talk about that more,
I
that
will
would be
definitely make a note to do it.
awesome. All right.
Discuss narrative and pick at least one favorite.
Or like pick discuss audience, I think would be really, really helpful for me.
Okay, cool.
And like if Tommy is like the biggest one too, I would like start digging into that and be like, well, what does that mean exactly?